Welcome everyone to the Damage Report. We've been here for a while waiting for all of you to arrive and you finally saunter in. Okay, I guess we can start the show. Thank you audience for finally arriving. No, I'm kidding. We had a little tech problems, we worked it out. Anyway, I'm John Earl. Today is a Monday, which means Francesca Fiorentini. Francesca, thank you for being here.
Hi, let's get to it.
Let's vogue on a Monday.
Yeah.
Anyway, very excited to have you here. Everyone, you should know that normally Francesca on a Monday would be fresh off the Habituation Room, but now it comes to you live Tuesday.
Yes.
So
Tuesday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. I am much fresher now that I'm not doing a Sunday show. So hope everyone tunes in.
Exactly. By the way, early heads up, I'm going to be here today. I'm here tomorrow, and then that's that for. Depending on how this trip goes, maybe the rest of my life. I'm gonna see if I can find myself. But anyway, that means that Wednesday and Thursday, Jessica Burbank will be stepping in to host the Damage Report, joined by Jared Jackson and then Anna Kasparian. And then Francesca will be hosting this Friday and next Monday. So thank you, Francesca, as always, for holding down the fort.
No problem.
Okay, well, with that said, we have a lot to get to and less time than normal to get to it in. So if everybody would hit the like button and share the stream, that would be great. And any comments, tweets, super chats you want to send us, that would be cool too. With all that said, Francesca, are you ready to start the show?
Oh yeah, been ready.
Okay, then let's do it. We've been charting Trump's reaction step by step since the FBI raid. Now, he began with indignation, and then denial, and then conspiracy theorizing, and then bluffing about wanting the warrant to be released, and then pretending that once it wasn't a big deal. And then there was some more indignation, but eventually he got around to one of his favorite states, which is threats. Veiled for now, which is nice. We'll see what we have by tomorrow, but he apparently sent a message through an intermediary to Merrick Garland saying, "The country is on fire. What can I do to reduce the heat?" And by the way, he also did an interview this morning with Fox Digital where he said, I want to do anything to reduce the heat, but terrible things might happen. There's a lot of anger out there, a lot of anger. Maybe I can do something. Now you'll notice that in that statement, in his interview, he didn't do anything to reduce the heat. He just acknowledged that people are angry, which we don't need him to acknowledge. We know that a guy already attacked the FBI in Cincinnati, so that's cool. And repeatedly said that they're right to be angry, that this is a hoax and a setup and a witch hunt. It was a stealth attack, sneak attack on Mar-a-Lago. So there's rage, and they should be enraged. Maybe there's something I can do, maybe, to turn down the heat a little bit, he said to Merrick Garland, and now he's putting it out there openly. That to me, Francesca, seems like a threat, that he acknowledges that we are on the precipice of lethal violence and he could do something, maybe if they give him something. I don't know, what do you think?
He loves it. He loves it just like he loved January 6th. He wants to sit back and watch people attack the FBI and DHS or DOJ or whomever, it doesn't matter, like tear it all down. Like this is like the next step of January 6th. The real question remains, what the hell was stolen? And did he know that he wasn't allowed to take that stuff? I'm pretty sure he did. And how all of his lies are not stacking up. The like, once I take it from the White House, it automatically becomes declassified was one of the lines. Like, no, buddy, that's not how anything works. And you don't have executive privilege anymore. Which is part of the reason why we can even charge this guy in the first place, right? It's like the Espionage Act has been reserved for civilians. And honestly, civilians who've actually tried to blow the whistle on really important matters like NSA spying, right? This is not that. This is completely not that, but it is a civilian being charged with taking classified documents for not the country's benefit, but of course, probably for his own and his family's benefit.
Yeah, and speaking about benefit, of course, Rand Paul over the weekend was like, well, we should get rid of the Espionage Act. And I think that's a great debate, I think, for our country to have, because as Francesca has pointed out, it generally is used for people other than the president. I think that is a great debate to have. But right now it is the law. And so if Trump violated it, well, that's the law. And he increased the penalties while he was president, he was perfectly fine to have it out there. And if this was a regular person, if this was a reality winner or something, I have a feeling neither Rand Paul or Donald Trump would be shedding many tears. So anyway, I'm not the only person who thinks that this is a threat. Research director for Crew, Robert McGuire, tweeted just a normal former president hinting to the current attorney general of the United States, who was about to make an announcement about the investigation of the former president, that he can fan the flames of violence before asking, what can I do to reduce the heat? Now, he really wants to make sure that you know how much anger is out there and the direct control that he has over Donald Trump. So he truthed earlier, just left a large gathering of people and all they could talk about was the complete and total stranglehold that the radical left Democrats have over the DOJ and FBI. It shouldn't be that way. Nobody goes after BLM, Antifa, or the rest, despite murder, beatings, and burning down large sections of cities. A very unfair double standard. They definitely won't attack the home of a former Democrat president, nor should they. It is also out of control. Great simmering anger. So first of all, yes, if people in those groups commit murder, they are and should be investigated for that. It's an absolute insane conspiracy.
Wait.
Let them off the hook.
On that point, BLM was like has been infiltrated by the FBI. Like you remember Occupy, also another left movement infiltrated by the FBI. We don't even
Francesca,
know.
How many of them are presidents?
Yeah, honestly.
What do I care?
The biggest problem they had was just like nobody was a president in the crowd.
They should have gotten.
Is anyone here a president?
Anyone maybe interned a bit as a president? Any work experience as a president? No. So anyway, I don't even know if that's true. I don't even know if he was in a large gathering, but he wants you to believe that he has been going and talking to and absorbing the great simmering anger, the very large dumps of anger. And also he has control over it. He's telling them it's a stranglehold. He's telling them that they're persecuting Republicans. There's no evidence of that, but he's saying it. And all of this again is not just the prelude to violence. We've already had the violence in the immediate aftermath of these attacks. They are not condemning it. Donald Trump is not telling them that attacks against the FBI are illegitimate. It's all very vague, very speculative, and very quid pro quo. Let's be clear about that. He wants them to announce that they didn't do anything wrong, they're not gonna be investigating him, and then maybe he'll tell them to back off. That is it's not even fair to call it subtext in this. This is the text of what he's put out. And anyway, you should also know that it wasn't just in Cincinnati. A law enforcement source told CNN that the FBI is investigating an unprecedented number of threats against personnel following the Mar-a-Lago raid. Now look, I think in general, take with a major grain of salt any law enforcement sources telling the media about how big victims they are, but it's not difficult to imagine that this is true. And we know that one has already been acted out on. By the way, Ken Klippenstein, American hero, he put out what he got, this leaked document. The FBI and DHS issued a joint intelligence bulletin warning of the potential for domestic violence extremists to carry out attacks in reaction to the FBI's recent execution of that warranted search. So yeah, like we're cruising into this week just wondering what's gonna happen. Is there gonna be another attack, another shooting, perhaps a bombing? Which of these MAGA people is going to do what they've been goaded hour after hour to do?
Yeah, and like interestingly, it feels like we're already moving on from the Cincinnati attack, right? Like, yeah, he had a nail gun. He also had an AR-15, and then he was killed. So is he a martyr now? Does he join the ranks of Ashley Babbitt, another radicalized follower who met the consequences for her actions, right? Like, as tragic and awful as that is, the tragedy isn't that they met the consequences. The tragedy is that their brains got slowly poisoned and turned to mush by this cultish movement that tells them they have to take up arms and storm the Capitol or the FBI, and that was going to be a legitimate thing to do at all, right? That's the real tragedy. When the amount of blood on their hands of their own people, y'all, right? Like, remember how Tucker Carlson was like outing just randos who were at the Capitol and was blaming them? I mean, like, how many low-level people have to die before we all understand this is a cult that doesn't care whether their followers live or die?
Yeah, if you're a crazy gun-wielding conservative out there, be very careful in your quest to become a martyr. So there's a chance that you might be Ashley Babbitt or whatever, that you might be considered a martyr. You died for the political benefits of the guy from Home Alone 2. But there's a much greater chance that they're just going to deny that you're a Trump fan. In fact, they're gonna call you Antifa. So just enjoy that. That is how you will be remembered as part of Antifa. Anyway, Donald Trump is out there telling ever increasingly complex and ridiculous lies about the raid. Take a look at this. This is him attempting to gain control over the situation again. Oh, great. It literally starts, oh great. It has just been learned that the FBI, in its now famous raid of Mar-a-Lago, took boxes of privileged attorney-client material and also executive privilege material, which they knowingly should not have taken. By copy of this truth, I respectfully request that these documents be immediately returned to the location from which they were taken. Thank you.
Oh my God.
By copy of this truth, I hereby truth. Give me my books back. Come on.
Yeah.
And can our descent into apocalypse be a little bit less pathetic than this?
And it's so, once I have truth something, it has become declassified. You untruth the classification and you retruth the like what are we, and why are we all doing the Colbert impression of Trump? But also,
it's all I can do. I don't remember what Trump sounds like, honestly.
I know.
That's the only way that I get it.
It's really just the Colbert one. But yeah, like it is, you're totally right. It's the tackiest descent into fascism,
Yeah.
And like, I want to imagine like Spain's Franco was this tacky, or like Mussolini. I know Mussolini was a showman, but was it this bad?
By virtue of carrier pigeon, I declare war. I TikTok bankruptcy. It's just pathetic. But look, of course, we're laughing. The substance of it is important. And I don't just mean the substance of the documents that he stole. And there's more to it actually than just this, because they apparently also lied to the FBI. This came out over the weekend. At least one lawyer for Trump signed a written statement back in June of this year asserting that all material marked as classified and held in boxes at Mar-a-Lago in the storage area had been returned to the government. 4 different people confirmed that. So remember, the government initially was like, dude, you can't, we need the documents back. And so some of the boxes were handed over and they signed a written statement, his lawyer saying, that's it, that's all the classified stuff. They knew they were lying, they did it intentionally. So again, all this stuff about sneak attacks and how could they possibly do this? They lied in written statements about the theft that they were continuing to do. They tried to fake out the investigators by giving them some documents while holding the real ones. And so if you were wondering why one of the criminal statutes that was cited in the search warrant that we were talking about on Friday is related to obstruction, well, this might be why. They're clearly trying to obstruct an investigation by giving some documents and then lying and saying that that's it. When they have 12 or 15 boxes of additional documents. Anyway, as Francesca alluded to, his next defense is, no, I totally declassified it. I scrunched my nose and I thought declassified. That's not actually how it works. It's a process that takes months and requires written documents. And that's for the documents that he legally can declassify. I cannot stress enough, if someone tells you he can declassify whatever he wants, they are not just wrong about process. They are not just wrong about timeline. There are many documents he cannot, under any circumstances, with any process, declassify. The classification process does not just come via the president. Many documents are classified under that, and he can declassify them if he goes through the proper steps. But there are others that he cannot. It is a massive lie.
Well, why can't you reveal how you declassified it? Because that's classified.
It's like, until I decide it's not, talk to me tomorrow. Maybe it won't be anymore. By virtue of this wand, declassified.
This truth wand.
Order of truth. Oh my God.
By order of this truth, capital T, capital R, capital U.
Yeah, we did the top 10 list of the words they've ruined, like fake news and all that. Truth is already most of the way to ruined. Yes. I hate truth now.
Yeah.
Anyway,
never hated truth more.
Okay, we got to go to our first break a little bit early. We're gonna figure out what we can do, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a minute. Well, this month has gotten off to, or week has gotten off to a crazy start. I'm just gonna briefly mention graphics 10 and 11, and then we'll go to the media thing. Just because you should understand, like my immediate thought, because I'm an idiot, was that like if he is being investigated for stealing state secrets, well, that's probably bad for Trump. And we were joking initially that like, oh, DeSantis probably leaked it. Well, look, probably not, and I don't know for sure. But what I do know is nothing works the way it should. Last month, 53% of Republican voters in a political poll said they would vote for Trump in the 2024 primary. Following the raid, he climbed to 57%. DeSantis dropped down from 23 to 17. So the electorate shifted 10 points more pro-Trump after they found out the FBI had raided his house. But why not? Why not, Francesca? Why not?
Nah. It'll go down. I don't trust polling.
Maybe. We'll see. Okay. The fake polls.
Fake polls. Numbers aren't real. After 2016, I hate everyone named Nate. If you're in political polling or not, I hate you.
Well, I agree with that. By the way, I tweeted last week. It was just people's initial reaction of the raid. It was like 12 points positive. I have never triggered more right wingers by posting the results and a link to the raw results of a poll. They lost their minds. One person was like, "Oh yeah, what was that? The CNN polling the DNC?" And I was like, "No, it's the results are right there. You can actually see the number of people that they polled. That's not actually how it works. Why would you send me that tweet? That's not how it works. That's not how they do polls." Anyway, okay, with that, why don't we move on to some fun? How will the media spin these updated facts on the raid of Mar-a-Lago and Trump's possibility that he broke the law multiple times? Well, in every direction simultaneously. So one anchor, Eric Shawn, floated the possibility that Trump might have tried to sell the classified documents. And I think he actually mentioned specifically the possibility that they were selling these documents to Vladimir Putin. I would say if they are nuclear documents, it's not that Putin wouldn't want them, but they've got thousands of nukes. I think they're doing okay. And by the way, I know a lot of people are jumping to that he was selling the documents. That is not impossible, but we need some evidence. First of all, that's a great way to blackmail him if you were to try to, that's true. But there's other much easier explanations of Trump wanting to show it to people to brag about it. I would just say let's pump the brakes on specifically the selling it. We'll find out if that's what it was. Anyway, others are more defensive of Trump. One host, as Will Kane said, President Nixon said if the president does it, then it's not illegal. And you know you're in a good spot when it comes to abuse of presidential power when you're citing President Nixon positively. Anyway, he specifically said, when it comes to classified documents, famously, President Nixon said if the president does it, then it is not illegal. Is that not truly the standard when it comes to classified documents? The president has the ability to at any time declassify anything, which is very not true. But lying openly is very on brand for a fan of President Nixon. So they're going in a couple different directions there. That's not actually the most embarrassing part. We're gonna get to that in one sec. Sean Hannity descends to humiliating depths to defend Donald Trump. But Francesca, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, this is an entire party like that, and part of the Republican Party that didn't learn from Nixon at all. You know, Roger Stone has a tattoo of him on his back, and I'm sure he's working on the Trump one, right? He's gonna have the tramp stamp Trump tattoo above, we don't have to talk about where. But like this is just amazing to me. Like, don't stop bringing up Watergate, bro. In his very first truth, Trump started bringing up Watergate. This is like Watergate. Yeah, it is in one way, which is that you abused your powers as president. Like he's like, no,
stole secrets.
And still, exactly, it's like, no, it's because the break-in and the DNC, like, no, that's not how it's like Watergate at all. And that dude actually resigned in shame because he was guilty. You got voted out. It's kind of fun. Maybe you should have resigned earlier instead of face defeat. Anywho, yeah.
Anyway, I do want to turn to Sean Hannity because that's where it gets perhaps the most pathetic. So a couple days ago, he said, if there are nuclear documents, then the FBI definitely planted them. And he's not gonna believe, he said, I don't care what they are, I'm not gonna believe it. So he's at least being honest in his dishonesty. But anyway, it goes beyond that. The Nixon thing as a defense for Trump, that looks bad. But get a load of this.
You think that they would try and indict the former president in the hopes of convicting him and having him in jail at the time of the next election to prevent him from running? Because a conviction, by the way, constitutionally would not prevent him from running for office.
Now, look, Sean Hannity is awful and pathetic. He's not wrong. We actually interviewed Dave Leventhal of Insider recently. I believe that's already up on the channel. He can apparently run for president and in fact serve as president behind bars.
Yes.
But the fact that that doesn't bother Sean Hannity, that he's prepping for like, well, I guess plan B is jailhouse president, jailhouse POTUS, I guess. I'd watch that movie, by the way. Someone should definitely make that movie. Anyway, that's not where you should be as a party. There are other people that could run. DeSantis is a crazy conservative radical. Why wouldn't you switch to him at that point?
Because he's like a really bad public speaker. Don't you kind of like every time you sort of get afraid of DeSantis, you like watch him say something and he's like, I mean, right? And you're just like, oh God, you like you don't even have a Trumpian level of, sort of cadence. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. What's the word? Clearly, I'm there too.
You're a regular DeSantis, Francesca.
I'm not just a run-of-the-mill DeSanti. Here's the thing. I did a deep dive because I got very scared, more than 10 minutes of a Google search and was like, oh yeah, you can run and serve as president while in jail.
Yeah.
What the hell? We live in a country where former felons cannot vote. But if you're Donald Trump and you are indicted and maybe you're convicted and you're serving time, you can be president, y'all.
Yeah. Yeah, well, so he could run, but he couldn't vote. It would be delicious if he lost by one vote in that state.
All I need is one. Anyway.
Just one. Come on, somebody, Barron, get out there, man. You're killing me. Anyway, Yeetwood Mac thinks the word is charisma that you're looking for.
Yes,
anyway,
thank you.
Just really fast, a couple more comments. Laura Ingram, and this is fascinating, says, Donald Trump's been a friend of mine for 25 years, and I'm always very open about this on my show, but we'll see whether that's what the country wants. The country, I think, is so exhausted. They're exhausted by the battle, the constant battle, that they may believe that, well, maybe it's time to turn the page if we can get someone who has all of Trump's policies who's not Trump, right? I'm not saying the dagger's in the back, but the dagger is tickling the back. A little bit of that. Anyway, interestingly, credit, as occasionally happens, to Steve Doocy, I guess, for saying, with all these threats going around, it would ultimately be great if the former president, who has always been a great supporter of law enforcement and who has posed with 1,000 police departments coast to coast, it would be great if he called for an end to the violent rhetoric against federal law enforcement, and in particular the FBI that was just doing their job. Good luck on that one. Anyway, Ainsley Earhart condemned the threats and says, no one is for the violence of FBI agents. Yeah, except for Donald Trump, the dude that you're talking about, and many of his supporters. Many of the conservatives watching your show are like, well, yeah, no, back the blue, but if they take down Trump, I'm gonna shoot every single one of them in the head. Yeah. Okay, deny that. That's your audience.
Defund the FBI, except
let's do that.
Not let's just attack them. I have to say, Steve Doocy is like a hop, skip, and a jump away from going to CNN. He's gonna follow Chris Wallace, but I love how passive aggressive he's. I don't know. Maybe the president might have accidentally committed a major crime here, but I'm just saying, maybe we shouldn't be, trying to attack FBI agents. Anyway, back to my oatmeal. Like he's so wholesomely bothered by what's happening.
Yeah. Anyway, we're gonna see it, man. It is like I don't want to watch Fox News all day long, but things are developing faster. And I think people are starting to try to produce a little bit of cover, but that does not mean that they're gonna throw them to the wolves. Anyway,
because they know what's gonna happen. Sorry, just they know what's gonna happen. It's gonna be another attack, and then what are they gonna do? Just not cover it or have to excuse it?
Yeah. Say it's Antifa. It's obviously Antifa. That's easy. I just did that. That's super easy. Anyway, with that, we're gonna move on to the B block, okay? We have a little bit of video. Why don't we jump directly into it?
Yeah, but Andrew, you're gonna have policy positions at some point. How does the Forward Party feel about Roe versus Wade? Should it have been overturned?
Well, I personally think that women's reproductive rights are fundamental human rights, but the Forward Party has not left or right, but forward stance on even the most divisive and contentious issues.
Well, what does that mean? Don't you have to take a position on something? Don't you have to take a position on something? You can't just say, well, this is a hot button issue, so I'm not going to take a position on it. If you want to run the country, you're going to have to make some hard decisions, Andrew.
Again, the Forward Party is about that common sense consensus majority view, which is very clear on abortion. It's clear.
What about guns? What about assault weapons?
On climate change. It's actually clear on just about every issue under the sun.
Should 18-year-olds be able to buy AR-15s?
Because of the nature of our system.
Should 18-year-olds be able to buy AR-15s?
Again, the common sense consensus majority is that there should be some rules around background checks and access to firearms, but we're not getting any of these things, Jim, because the two-party system does not need to deliver.
But it doesn't sound like you're taking any hard positions. It sounds like you're
trade power.
It sounds like you're sort of a fill-in-the-blank party. If somebody wants a party with no clear policy positions, you're it.
Or alternatively, the Democratic Party would be it. But anyway, Jim Acosta is not having it with Andrew Yang and the Forward Party, and he's being very dismissive. I don't know that I've ever seen him be this dismissive. Maybe with Trump, I guess. But other than that, like if this was Schumer, if this was Pelosi, and she was evading a question, he would have a little bit less spice on it. That's all I'm saying. But that doesn't mean that he's wrong. Andrew Yang really didn't answer these questions because look, the issue isn't that it's a third party fundamentally. It's saying the common sense position and we're good. That's not enough. You do have to answer questions at some point. Look, I agree with Andrea. I think there are widely held positions that a lot of people, including on both sides, share about many of these topics. But to pretend that there aren't fundamentally divisive things that would result in people turning against your party, like people care so much about this. These are not just, oh, it's common sense. Like people are fired up about the environment and guns and abortion and, I don't know, despising the trans community. What's the common sense centrist position on the existence of trans people? Like these are not super difficult questions. These are like the base level questions that you have to have an answer for. And I understand he's not gonna have the same position as everyone who might be a part of this party. Like everyone's gonna have slightly different positions, but you can't just keep saying common sense. At some point, people wanna know what you stand for. And I've talked with Andrew Yang, I've had him on the show. I like a good number of the things he says. He's sometimes on social media says some things that I find very frustrating, but this is not gonna do it. I don't think this is gonna pull in a bunch of people. You have to show that you stand for something.
Well, I think you're misunderstanding the word forward, John. So like forward means moving through space and time linearly. And you're sort of like caught up in these, sort of side quests, if you will.
I will.
Things that we've already answered, and I don't need to answer them to have the answer because they've been answered, and I'm moving past those answers even though we've never answered them. So I don't understand what you're not getting. But what I love about this is the most tech bro response to a two-party system. It's like, ooh, here's a problem. I know it's a problem. And I'm, instead of actually solving the problem, I don't know, advocating for a parliamentary system in the United States government, not a winner take all, ranked choice voting, the kind that made Andrew Yang come in 4th place for his governorship in New York. Why don't we, or his mayorship, excuse me, why don't we just do something completely useless that doesn't help anyone, like another centrist party? Let's just do that. Isn't that what everyone needed? No, nobody needs that. Just like nobody needs, I don't know, like a way to collate all the different rideshare apps when you can't find which one's the fastest. You know what I mean? Like these, it's like literally they're gonna be introducing their own cryptocurrency tomorrow. Watch, this is a shell game of a party, and he clearly can't even answer a straightforward question.
Yeah, I don't know enough about, I can't make any broad statements about the party, and it's still relatively new. Maybe he'll get better at messaging, maybe they'll figure out their core ideology a little bit better. But I want us to have a voting system that gives third parties a better chance of competing in a lot of elections. And I also want people to have good impressions of third parties. It's one of the reasons why when you're a high profile person who has started one, I want you to message about it in a way that doesn't turn a bunch of people off to the concept of a third party. That would be my preference.
But he does that with everything. He poison pills UBI, right? Universal basic income, it's great, but he's like $1,000 a month, and then we take away all the other things that you get, Medicare, Medicaid, any kind of welfare, it all goes out the window, and you're like, no, stop.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We're gonna be tracking it. But yeah, if you watch the full interview with Acosta, it gets even more aggressive. Like if you don't think that they can be combative, they can be with certain people, just certain people. Anyway, with that said, we're gonna take our second break. When we come back, we're gonna have our Monday Menace. We're gonna have, fun Dr. Oz ad. I can't wait to get to this. We got lots of news to get to, don't go anywhere. Okay, I'm gonna give an early heads up to the director. I think, do we do C and D and then do E in the, yeah? Okay, we'll continue with our previously scheduled rundown. But in a sec, we're going to transition to our first video. I just want to say that we spend all weekend not relaxing, not resting, not recuperating, but searching for the monsters that dwell in the weekend. And then we produce our Monday Menace.
It's Build Back Better Part 2, over 700 pages of a bill that passes more Green New Deal insanity that AOC never wrote, by the way. She's not smart enough. She's not. She does makeup tutorials, okay? That's what she does. And she got elected by dancing on rooftops and making really bad drinks is what I've heard. She's not even a good bartender. So we know she didn't write the Green New Deal because she can't even think that deeply.
Can't make a mojito.
Okay, so is Marjorie Greene the worst person in that room? She is. Is she the most pathetic person in that room? No, the guy chuckling at that commentary definitely takes that label. But that is Marjorie Greene doing her show, which I'll remind you, she has plenty of time to do because she is not on any committees, she doesn't write legislation. That's what she does, revealing so much about herself. That AOC isn't smart enough. And then she repeats it, she isn't. She's like, she's not trying to convince the audience. She's trying to convince herself in real time that like she knows the aura that she has. She knows the reputation that she has in terms of her intellectual faculties. Mm-hmm. She wants to believe that the other side's the same. People love to compare, some of the crazies on the right to the squad. They couldn't be more different when it comes to substance, qualifications, their focus, why they're in government. But she wants to believe that everyone is as terrible as her, as cruel as her, as incurious as her. To go to, she makes bad drinks, I hear. Who did you hear about drinks she made 4 years ago? You're making up stuff about mojitos to make her sound bad. She got elected dancing on rooftops. You guys tried to take her down with the rooftop thing, and that was after she'd already won the election. It is such a bizarre, transparent, projecty attack against her. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't even really have like nice hair, and her lips are dry anyway. And she when she puts on that lipstick, she's misses spots. And I know the spots. It's the lower left-hand corner, right? Every single time she misses that spot. Anyway, and when she goes to the bathroom, she tinkles in a weird way. It's just she starts to tinkle and she stops and she starts again. Not that I would know, but I do know it, and I have been there. And anyway, and she's always eats the same salad at Panera. And I just wondered, so then I started eating that salad, but like it didn't. So anyway, it's a lot of calories, is what I'm trying to say. They are obsessed with her. Stop being obsessed with her, babe. Like it, she's smart. She wasn't a bartender. She didn't she took down the establishment that you rail against. Being a bartender makes her human, makes her real, makes her relate to working class people who she fights for on the regular. You were a CrossFit gym owner. Like, what did you?
Which is fine. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
You also inherited a lot of money from your parents, right? 100%. So like, what's the difference? Like, is it bad to work at like a working class job or not?
Yeah, no, they always go back. No, she in particular, like this is back in, exactly when, this is sometime like I think last year. This is, I think, Newsweek. Marjorie Greene suggests AOC is not smart because she was a bartender. Like, she keeps coming back to this. Wait, I thought you guys like love to pretend that you like aren't you populist? You love the working class. Oh no, you mock people who worked their way up. I'll never understand that. You can have issues with AOC. Trust me, many people do, I guess. The idea that she's not smart, okay, you don't like what she comes up with. That's stupid. Look, I'm gonna pull the curtain aside. I think of myself as a pretty smart person. I like to think that I'm a lifelong learner. I try to stay apprised of things.
I'm a lifelong smarter.
She's definitely smarter than me. She understands policy. She puts together coalitions. She writes legislation. She communicates about things. It is absurd to not be able to acknowledge that, even if she's your enemy. Think about how ill-prepared you are to take her on if you can't acknowledge her strengths as well as her weaknesses. The hell out of here.
You can't fight her on her ideas.
So jealous.
She can't. She has no comeback for any of the ideas. It's like, what is in the Green New Deal? I don't know, socialism.
She thinks mojitos are in the Green New Deal. That's what she thinks.
Yeah. They should.
She couldn't come up with the word muddle. Anyway, as a former bartender, I take issue with people besmirching.
Oh, you got to be smart to bartend. It is not easy.
It was difficult.
Multiple drinks at the same time.
Bartender. Exactly, yeah. And when like a bunch of kids want like daiquiris and virgin margaritas, that's tough. That's tough. It actually is a lot of work. Anyway, with that said, we're gonna move into our last bit of breaking news. Let's jump directly into this. Just a few days after some guy tried to attack the FBI headquarters in Cincinnati, another individual conducted some sort of attack in the Capitol. Driving up to the US Capitol building, his car exploded, set on fire almost immediately. He shot a firearm in the air and eventually, apparently, shot himself. You can see the press release about it there. It was pretty early on. He fired shots into the air. Nobody other than that individual was hurt, and he apparently shot and killed himself. He has now been identified, in fact, as Richard York, a 29-year-old of Delaware, crashed into a barricade. Maybe that's why his car was engulfed in flames. Maybe it was in some way rigged to be engulfed in flames. There are not a lot of details yet out about this. I assume that in the next day or so we will get those, but they say that they do not believe that he was targeting Congress people because they were not in session at this point. It's also possible that he's an idiot who didn't know that. In any event, thankfully, no one else was hurt. But following so closely after all the death threats against FBI members and Merrick Garland and the Cincinnati thing, Francesca, having someone even attack and then kill themselves is like literally the last thing that the country wants or needs.
My God. I mean, shoe on the other foot. Like, can you imagine what Trump would be saying? How much the far right media would be coalescing around this amount of violence. They're trying to throw all the violence. Well, it's Antifa, it was BLM. Where? We were there every single day that summer, all locked in our homes watching the footage. What was it? It was police beating and pepper spraying and tear gassing and arresting unarmed protesters. And here you have, it's a couple of incidents, except for the biggie on January 6th. And you're like, we're just supposed to let this wash over us. Like, again, everyone's, we love to talk about political violence. And this is my question is like, okay, so what's the solution here? What are people doing? And don't tell me, oh yeah, we're gonna get the FBI to infiltrate and then do some sting operations. F that. That's not okay. We need a real plan to de-radicalize folks. And I think listening to people who've been in these movements are important. But man, the movement is so mainstream. It's like when it's the Republican Party, what do you do?
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, like, let's keep it real. It's not about getting into that group. I have a feeling some are probably active members of that group. By the way, those crazies are cops and law enforcement too sometimes. Like,
yes,
let's acknowledge that. Remember January 6th, there was some suspicious stuff, I'll remind you. Anyway, we don't know why this guy did this. We don't know what his political ideology is. It's for all we know, he's a card-carrying progressive or something. I mean, there's no reason to believe that. It wouldn't make much sense, but anything is possible. What we do know though is this sort of thing is becoming so regular. Not just the political violence, but the attacks. There was a shooting, I believe it was in Indiana in the last day. It's like, but not enough people died for it to even be big news, I guess. Like, this is not the sort of thing that should be normalized. Overall mass violence, political violence. Like, we've been brought to this place. We didn't just end up here. People shepherded us there, and we need to turn around. Anyway, with that said, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for the first hour. I want to thank everyone watching on the linear platforms, listening to the podcast. As always, thank you so much for your support. We do have a lot more show, including John Fetterman's birthday clapbacks against Dr. Oz. We got Lauren Boebert's husband getting in trouble, and a whole lot more. We'll be back in just a few.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, John Adarola. I'll see you soon.